Chicago Bears first-round pick Colston Loveland is still recovering from off-season shoulder surgery, and that alone should be enough to temper our expectations, at least for just his rookie season.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On the show today, I want to check in on Colston Loveland's injury recovery and look at how that could shape his rookie season, where we know he's not going to be available for at least the first portion of the offseason. There's optimism for training camp, but that could just kind of slow things down in this process, and maybe it's better for us to go in with slightly lower expectations for Colston Loveland as opposed to expecting him to be the next Brock Bowers right away when he's going to be getting a late start to the process. So we'll check in on where the injury stands, what the Bears are expecting for him in the meantime, and how that might shape the kind of production we can see from him this season on the stat sheet that already I think was starting to get a little bit out of control, overhyped from the moment the Bears first drafted him. But let's check in more concretely on this injury situation. So this was a known thing. It was an injury he dealt with throughout most of his final season in college, and it's part of why his production was down a little bit this past year compared to what he had done the year before at Michigan. Not a lot, but didn't take this big jump forward. He ended up missing 3 games and parts of several others over the course of the season because of the shoulder injury he suffered in September. So to his credit, he played through it most of the entirety of the year. I believe he said, mostly just dealing with a lot of pain throughout that process and trying to power through it as best he could. But then in January, as soon as the season's done, he goes in and has AC joint surgery. And I'm no doctor, and I'll never pretend to have medical expertise. But from what I've read from doctors, it sounds like that's not a particularly, crazy surgery. It's not like something that tends to have a lot of long-term lingering concerns or effects, that once that's healed, in theory, it should be good to go and not be a concern anymore moving forward. That's, in theory. You never really know how things play out in the medical world and in the body, but nonetheless, like there is some real optimism about his recovery. When the Bears drafted Colston Loveland, they had their director of player personnel, Jeff King, did a press conference right afterwards and said, that they believe Colston Loveland will be ready for training camp and they feel good about the injury. And so by all means, on track and not something that certainly didn't concern the Bears enough to, not draft him, right? They were comfortable taking him 10th overall, comfortable with whatever medicals had come back on his shoulder situation. And then when Loveland got the opportunity to speak after he was drafted, they had a press conference at Hallis Hall. He was also asked about, okay, where are things with the shoulder and what's the timeline looking like for you? And he gave us a little bit more concrete of an update.
Cool. So I know you expressed optimism about your shoulder. What current restrictions are you dealing with, and what's the best case timetable for when you'll be ready to roll?
Yeah, so it's 6 months was the timetable. We're 3 out right now, and it feels great. I got full range of motion and everything. I can do really everything, but just like super heavy weight. So right now, we're in a good spot. Running, can catch balls. So, yeah.
So it is nice to hear that Loveland is able to do almost most things physically now, right? It's not like he's got his arm in a sling. I mean, I guess it's been 3 months now, so okay, he wouldn't still have his arm. But it's not like he's got to be in bubble wrap here where no one can bump into that shoulder. Like, he can run, he can catch passes. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to participate in practices. The Bears, and we'll focus on this a little bit more coming up here, but like he's not going to be doing on the field team drill work for rookie minicamp, for OTAs. I mean, like he said, it's a 6-month recovery and he had the surgery in January. So that would put 6 months at July, which is when training camp starts. So you can see where everything in theory is lining up the way it should. But that, first of all, means he's not going to get any OTAs minicamp work in on the field. But then the other thing here is the glory of the in theory. We believe it's good. We're comfortable with where it's at, because injuries are always a fickle thing. And it's never fair to compare one player's injury to another player's injury. Like, just because Kevin White didn't work out as an injured first round pick doesn't mean Colston Loveland. That's not a fair comparison here. But what I'm weary of is not that, like, oh, this injury is going to have some, it's going to make him a bust and that he's not going to have a successful NFL career. I'm weary about how it affects rookie season year one. And the comparison I want to make here is to last year's third round pick, Karan Amagaji. Totally different injuries, totally different recovery processes, totally different everything. But when the Bears drafted Amagaji last year, they told us they knew he was injured and that they were optimistic he would be ready for training camp. That was very similar language about Amagaji. And then when training camp rolled around, Ryan Poles said, well, not quite ready yet, but we're optimistic and hope he can ramp up soon and get back out there. And Amagaji ends up missing all of training camp and all of the preseason and doesn't really get healthy until right before the regular season. And so that's not to say that I think the same thing is going to happen for Colston Loveland, but the point being, when the team might have a certain idea or expectation for how an injury recovery is going to go, and sometimes in practice, in reality, it doesn't go the way they expected it to, and it can go longer. It's certainly not going to go shorter. You're not going to see like, wow, he miraculously healed in 4 months instead of 6, but it's just a question of, like, when they say, yeah, we think he'll be ready for training camp, I find myself in the position of like, well, I'll kind of see it, believe it when I see it kind of thing. Like they've lost some benefit of the doubt for me when it comes to injury timelines in the offseason like this, because it just feels like we've had this kind of thing happen before where someone is supposed to be ready for training camp and then it turns out they're not. And there's never really a ton of explanation as to why or what exactly happened there, or whether whether that was always a possibility or whether there was a setback. Like, we don't always get an answer there, but that's where I'm left a little stuck with Colston Loveland, where it's like, I certainly hope that everything goes the way it should and he's ready to go for training camp, but I'm not going to blindly assume that he'll be 100% the day training camp opens. Because even if, the 6 month recovery is done there, is he going to be in peak condition physically there? I mean, I guess he can do some running and catching and stuff, but like, if he hasn't been practicing at all at that point, there's still going to need to be a ramp up period once he actually starts practicing. Like, then you're kind of starting from scratch, starting from day one, if he hasn't been able to participate on the field in any of the offseason work up until that point. He's still going to be in the building, still going to be involved with his coaches and his teammates. And we did get to hear from Ben Johnson about what that offseason's going to look like for Colston Loveland if he's not actually practicing. So we'll hear from the head coach and find out more about the plan for the rookie tight end next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, all experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with that top freelance talent across multiple industries. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Say you need help with a marketing campaign. Well, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Posting a job on Upwork is free and simple, and within a day, you can have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Just visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. So if Colston Loveland is at least going to miss rookie minicamps, mandatory minicamps, OTAs, and everything up until training camp at the earliest is when he returns, well, then what's he going to be doing all that time? He's not just going to be sitting around doing nothing. And I imagine there may be like some aspects of almost sort of like practice that he can kind of do on the side, right? He is able to run. You don't want him to be in any kind of situation where anyone's going to make any kind of contact with him, and they might even be wary of throwing passes to him at the risk of, ball hitting a shoulder or bending in a certain way or doing, triggering the injury in some way that you just never know what kind of freak thing could be happening if he's running in a drill. Like it's not that important. It's important that he's out there, and I'm concerned about how missing this time is going to affect his rookie season, but it's also like best for him in the long term if you let this fully recover and heal and get to 100% so he can really take off and truly get there from there. But in the meantime, he'll be in the meetings, he'll be watching the film, he'll be at practice, he'll be watching practice, and Ben Johnson kind of took us through what that is going to look like for Loveland and why it's still going to be important even if he's not physically participating fully in practices.
And what's your plan for Colston Loveland during rookie minicamp, OTAs, things like that, where you probably aren't going to have him on the field? What do you hope to gain during that time with him?
Yeah, it's all mental for him at that point. There's a lot to learn, not only scheme wise, but also it's technique wise as well. So Jim Dre is going to be on him 24/7 in terms of him being able to retain everything that we're going to throw at him. To me, that's next to quarterback, that's the toughest position to learn, particularly early on rookie year. But he demonstrated the capacity that it shouldn't be a problem.
So when Ben Johnson talks about tight end being one of the most difficult positions to learn and adapt to in the NFL, that's where my concerns lie about this injury slowing down Colston Loveland's rookie season. Because we think about like last year with Karan Amagaji, right, where he missed missing training camp was obviously a huge part of that, and Loveland can do some catching up at training camp. He's just going to be starting from behind a little bit, but when you don't have that time to prepare and develop and work with your teammates and be on the field, like you're starting off from behind, and then when somebody like Amagaji goes on the field, he's way over his head and not ready for that moment because he missed all of that preparation and developing time throughout the missed opportunities of the offseason. And so with Loveland trying to do that for tight end, like that is a really difficult position to learn because in that role in the offense, you have to it's kind of like learning everything a wide receiver has to learn because you have to be a pass catcher, and also learning everything an offensive lineman has to learn because you're going to be a part of all the blocking schemes. Like and not just like a receiver blocking on the edge, but like a pivotal part of run schemes and pass protection, right? There's kind of double the responsibilities and aspects that you have to learn from the tight end position. And you can get some of that mentally, by watching practice and trying to stay engaged. But there's a lot to be said about physically being out there next to the offensive tackle, next to you on the line, right? Working through the footwork when feeling out the distance between you and the guy next to you. Hey, if we're going to double team on this block, what angle do I have to take? How long do I need to stay there before I can disengage and go to the next level? Like, it's going to be different for Loveland doing it than him standing there watching Cole Kmet doing it and saying, okay, I should try and do it that way, because they're not built exactly the same. They don't have the exact same height, weight, strength, right? They're different human beings. They move in different ways, right? They have different physical tools. So you have to be out there doing it yourself. And same thing as a receiver, as a route runner, right? Building that rapport and that chemistry with Caleb Williams so he knows how quickly you run certain routes or how you're reading certain option routes. And that stuff where it's like, yeah, you can watch it from the sidelines, but at some point you just got to be out there doing it and getting those reps in. And when you're not getting those reps in through OTAs, mandatory minicamp, etc., you're falling behind and you're just not getting as much out of your summer. Like it's one thing if it's a veteran player who misses OTAs and minicamp, they'll be fine, right? A veteran will show up to training camp. They already know how to play, what they need to do to be successful in the NFL. They know how to take care of their body. They know playbooks. They know exactly how everything's going to go. Veteran players can miss that time, and it's not that big of a deal. But it's specifically because Colston Loveland is a rookie, and because he's adapting to the NFL at such a difficult position of tight end, it's all the more important that he be out there. And the fact that he's not going to be out there is a challenge, and it's going to slow down some of that development. And so it's why I kind of want to temper some expectations here. And like, we don't have to expect him to be Brock Bowers right away in year one. Like, I think we should have super high expectations for Colston Loveland's career. He as a 10th overall pick, he needs to have a very, very successful career. But like year one, might be playing some catch up, might be slower out of the gate, might be number 2 tight end behind Cole Kmet and looking for opportunities that way. Like it's gonna be some build up there. It's not gonna be right out of the gate ready to go because he just won't be able to take everything that they put on his plate all at once in that same time frame there. Like it's just not quite realistic to expect. And then from there, it kind of depends on like how much you should lower expectations. Depends on like if he is indeed ready day one at training camp. I think he can ramp up and be pretty close to 100% of what you would like him to be. Maybe not 100%, but a lot closer. But if he misses the beginning of training camp and maybe he comes into training camp late and gets a little bit of preseason action in, like, and that doesn't to me feel like enough. And so I think when you combine his injury holding him back, plus just generally, you don't see, historically, you haven't seen a lot of rookie tight ends show up and dominate. There have been a couple in recent seasons, and we'll talk about them in a moment here. But like generally, most rookie tight ends start slow, and then year 2 and year 3 is when they have more of their explosion. There are some recent exceptions we'll talk about, but for the most part, that's generally been more the rule, and these recent players have been a little bit more the exception, especially when you add in the other weapons that are going to be here in this Bears offense that will get in the way of Loveland's potential production there as well. And so that's where I come from this approach of like, hey, guy's injured. It's not his fault. Doesn't mean he's a bad draft pick or anything. Maybe let's not expect 1,000 yards from him right away in his rookie season. And that's okay. You know what I mean? He can still have a successful rookie season and can still have a successful Bears career, even if year one maybe doesn't blow you out of the water the way you would hope for a top 10 pick a tight end to do right away in his rookie season. Like, it helps also that he is 21 years old, just recently turned 21 at the beginning of April. So like he is going to have a long career. It's not like some of these older rookies that come in at, 23, 24, and you've already missed on a couple of those years. Like, he's still very early at the beginning stages of his athletic career, of his life in a lot of ways. And so I think you can have some patience with a younger prospect in the draft dealing with an injury. That doesn't mean he's going to have no impact as a rookie, right? It's not that he's going to be an afterthought, that he's not going to be, he's just not going to have much of an impact at all. Like, no, he's going to be an important part of this offense. But I want to take some time to go a little bit more specifically on like, well, then what should we expect? Okay, maybe we'll lower expectations a little bit. Can't expect him to be Brock Bowers, but then what is that? Is that 200 yards? Is that 400 yards? Is that 600 yards? Is that 800 yards? We'll take a look at some other rookie tight ends and look at some projections to try and figure out where Colston Loveland might slot in this season next on Locked On Bears. I'm a little worried that Brock Bowers' phenomenal rookie season has like, not permanently, I guess, but like indefinitely warped our perception of what a tight end should do during his rookie season. Because like what Brock Bowers did this past season is historic and not necessarily is something you could think about as like replicable, right? Like not only was he a phenomenal breakout rookie player, but he led all tight ends in the NFL in receiving yards and catches this season. Like Pro Bowl, I mean, that was phenomenal. And it's a great testament to Brock Bowers' ability. But like we never see rookies lead all tight ends in receiving yards. You almost never see rookie tight ends break 1,000 yards. I mean, we don't see a lot of tight ends in general break 1,000 yards, but especially not rookies. Like it's Brock Bowers and then was Kyle Pitts' rookie season are the only two in recent memory of tight ends going for 1,000 yards as a rookie. It just doesn't happen, and that's certainly not something that I think anyone should be expecting of Colston Loveland, even if he was fully healthy. Now you add in that he's going to have a slower start from the shoulder injury, and we can sort of work our way down from there. So like I wanted to compare to like other recent tight end seasons, because we've seen some pretty spectacular ones, even, before Brock Bowers blew everything out of the water. You look back to like 2 years ago, Sam Leaporta his rookie season. Sam Leaporta is a player that we've seen Colston Loveland get compared to a couple of different times throughout this pre-draft process. He blew everybody out of the water with 86 catches for 889 yards and 10 touchdowns. I don't think that's even realistic to expect for Colston Loveland, especially with the injury. Like, those are extreme rookie tight end numbers. Like, to give you a good comparison here, with Brock Bowers this past season going for over 1,000 yards and all that stuff, do you know, among rookie tight ends this past season, do you know how many yards the second leading rookie tight end had this past season after Brock Bowers' absolutely spectacular rookie season? The second leader in receiving yards among tight ends in 2020, among rookie tight ends in 2024, was Jatavion Sanders of the Panthers, who had 342 yards. Then it was Theo Johnson of the Giants with 331. AJ Barner of the Seahawks had 245. So after Brock Bowers, next closest was 342 yards. No one else had 500 yards as a rookie tight end this past season. Like, that's generally more the range that players tend to perform in. You look at 2 years ago, Sam Leaporta had 889 yards. Dalton Kincaid of the Bills, the first-round pick, had 673 yards. That's a little bit more realistic for somebody like Colston Loveland. But after those two, your next closest was 355 yards. Tucker Kraft of the Packers. Then Luke Musgrave of the Packers had 352. Like, most tight ends are under 400 yards in their rookie seasons. It's only the extremes of the Bowers, the Laportas, the Kyle Pittses, and in this case, Dalton Kincaid came pretty close to the above and beyond of the tight end performance. Like, the first tight end taken in 2022, so now was that 3 years ago now, was Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals, who recently became the NFL's highest paid tight end. So this is someone who obviously has gone on to have a ton of success after his rookie season when he had 29 catches for 265 yards. Like, he was the first tight end taken in that draft, but he was 7th among tight ends in receiving yards that year. He had a slow down rookie season. Now, goes on to have, spectacular year 2 and year 3 that boost him up to being, one of the best players at his position in the NFL. But slow start was a normal thing for a tight end. In 2022, the leading receiver at tight end was Okonkwo from the Titans, who had 450 yards. Greg Dulcich from the Broncos had 411. There was not a rookie tight end who eclipsed 500 receiving yards in 2022. Like, that's just more of the common reality at the position, and that's okay. And that's where I kind of want to bring things down for Colston Loveland just a little bit. You can even think back to Cole Kmet's rookie season, 28 catches, 243 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Didn't ruin Cole Kmet's career to have a slower start to his rookie season. So then where do we put things then for Colston Loveland? Okay, if it's not going to be 1,100 yards like Brock Bowers, not going to be almost 900 yards like Sam Leaporta, but I think that Dalton Kincaid 600 and change number is a good goal to shoot for. But he may even come a little bit underneath it. I think at a minimum, you'd like to see Colston Loveland hit 500 yards. I think that's enough of like that's a good start and an important part of the offense, but not expecting him to change the world. Like over at ESPN, Mike Clay is a football and a fantasy football analyst who does stat projections for every player around the league. And he's projected Colston Loveland with 54 catches for 596 yards and 4 touchdowns, almost 600 yards as a rookie. Like, that to me is a pretty good, realistic expectation. And if you said on draft day, hey, the Bears are going to take Colston Loveland and he's only going to have 500 yards this season, that might sound like, 10th overall pick is only going to have 500 yards his rookie season. It's like, yeah, but he's injured and it's the tight end position, and it's really hard for tight ends to come into the NFL and thrive right away because it's so much responsibility, because it's so hard to learn, because you have to do so many different things and have so many different roles within an offense, while also adjusting to the physicality and the speed of the NFL players across from you. Like, it's okay. Now, if Colston Loveland is healthy all year and has 200 yards, then we can be concerned, right? I mean, I think he's got to have, better than a bad number 2 tight end. You look around the NFL, like, he's going to be splitting time with Cole Kmet in some capacity. And so we shouldn't expect him to necessarily have the full-on like number 1 tight end caliber production there. But like, he should be at least like among the better number 2 tight ends, at least in terms of actual production and numbers there, right? Like you can expect him to be more than just a couple 100-yard type of guy. I'm trying to think about some of like Dawson Knox with the Bills was their number 2 tight end this year and had like 350 yards. Like you should be able to do a little bit better than that. I'm trying to quickly glance around and think about other number 2 tight ends that play real roles that are not just like backups that don't really participate much in their team's offense. I guess the Packers have a couple. Well, they weren't really healthy there. Musgrave was banged up for most of this past season. The Vikings kind of rotated some guys in. Like number 2 tight ends have it that anywhere in that 300 to 400 100-yard range is kind of normal for them. And so I don't see why that can't be realistic for Colston Loveland. Like look at the Patriots last year. They had Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper as their top 2 tight ends. Henry had 675 yards and Hooper had 475 yards. That kind of combination for Kmet and Loveland, like if Kmet has 675 and Loveland had 475, I don't think that's really the end of the world. Like, sure, you want to aim higher and you hope that they can both have as many yards as possible, but I don't think that's a tight end stat line that I'm like panicking about or saying, oh no, what happened to the Bears offense or whatever. Like there's passes that got to go to DJ Moore and Burden and Luther Burden and Rome Odunze too. And there's only so many opportunities for everybody, but if they can make the most out of those plays, have a high yards per catch, have some touchdowns there, have them be high impact plays, that's more important than what the actual volume total number is over the course of the season, right? Impact matters more than the stat. The number is a little less important, but it's just a way of kind of giving us some context of like where the expectations should be in an offense like this. I do want to do the same thing for Luther Burden in the coming days here on the Locked On Bears podcast and try to get a sense of like, okay, rookie wide receiver, number 3 wide receiver in the rotation there, but also some good tight ends in this offense. How much should we expect from somebody like Luther Burden in year 1? We'll kind of go through those expectations and some other young Bears players coming into 2025. So make sure then that you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that way you're going to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen today, check out any of our other Locked On podcasts for your other favorite teams. We've got every NBA, MLB, NHL, and of course, NFL teams all covered here in the Locked On Podcast Network. So if you're rooting for, it doesn't even have to be other Chicago sports teams, but your basketball team, your baseball team, your hockey team, go check out the Locked On podcast for that team to make your second listen today. Just make sure you come on back tomorrow, make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.